This is the process shot. I'm Michael. I'm nervous about this tripod's leg, and I've seen Playtime, a French satirical comedy adventure of sorts from director Jacques Tati, made back in 1967. It once again follows Monsieur Hulot as he comes to Paris to work at a strange company that doesn't seem very productive, but does at least have a modern interior design. Despite a few close calls, he fails to actually meet with his employer, who ends up caught up in other affairs, while Hulot ends up in other buildings entirely. As Hulot tries to chase down his boss, the rest of the city remains on the move, with Hulot's story intersecting with various other characters and locations of this ultra-modern Paris, most notably an upscale restaurant whose opening night comes before construction is even finalized. Logistically, the story seems to begin where Mon Oncle ended, but this is still easily a standalone film and hardly story-driven, both in itself and in the greater scheme of Tati's work. The film is less about Hulot's story or any specific story, and more about exploring the modernist environment, an open-air maze of concrete, glass, and confusion, where one can get lost the moment they set foot through a door. Where Mon Oncle would more directly compare and contrast modernity and simplicity, Playtime puts the former on display almost entirely. The film's large and life-size environments are driven around satirizing the inevitable end result of this push for design efficiency. This Paris is unrecognizable with its large, boxy buildings, which are even seen in travel posters as generic creations across the globe, indistinguishable outside of the destination names. Hints of the traditional Paris skyline are seen, almost always in reflections, and forever out of sight to the viewer, but not the characters. Speaking of which, they also hold a cross-section of attitudes towards the past, if you will. From the nostalgic to the ignorant, from those who love to reminisce with war buddies, to tourists who are more fascinated by modern Paris. It does take some time, but the roots of the city do creep their way back to the surface, which in a sense is also a reflection of the people, with business or gimmick-driven exteriors hiding a much more humanistic sense of wonder within. Being primarily without a story and with limited dialogue, as are Tati's other films, visual storytelling is key. Wide framing is especially put to great use here, capturing these spacious settings in all their detail. Ironically, these settings are generally empty of life, though this leads to the environments becoming something to study in themselves. It's almost genius how generic and inefficient these supposedly forward-thinking environments are designed. Any sense of individuality is traded out for lifelessness, an idea further shared in the film's color design, or perhaps a near lack of color. The clothing of characters are also coded in accordance with their attitudes, some remaining completely gray, and others gradually shifting towards a more saturated palette. Like Tati's past films, editing also works out well, not only allowing the viewer to take in the environment at their own pace, but also to keep a logical sense of location even in hectic situations. There does seem to be a final statement in that as well, as the actual movement of characters changes from slow and orderly pacing to more chaotic or spontaneous patterns. It almost illustrates that the nature of humanity cannot be hindered by supposed ideas of streamlined efficiency and comfort, and eventually it will break free. Or something like that, I suppose. Playtime. Jacques Tati, 1967. 4.5 stars. I would definitely recommend giving it a watch. That's it for this review. If you liked it, leave a like. If you have something to add, leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. On a separate note, it looks like the tripod held up pretty well. I am still gonna need to fix it before it starts slipping any further, and there it goes.